Yeah, so I'm delighted with the opportunity to catch up as well today, Paddy. So my name is Aoife. I have a background in social care, and I've been working in social care for about 20 years now. I done my degree in CIT quite a while ago now. But I've pretty much been working in different social care environments. So I've worked with young people in residential care, and then I've worked in drug and alcohol services since 2006. I was 7 years with the Drugs Task Force in Dublin, and I moved to Australia where I worked in mental health and drug and alcohol services. And I returned to Australia in 2000 and from Australia to Cork in 2020, just 6 weeks before lockdown kicked in. And it was actually when I was in Australia that I came across human-centered design and how it was applied to human services. And I was so fascinated by it and found it just such a fun way of working and really inspiring when faced with very complex problems. So when I worked in Australia, we use human-centered design to develop a program in response to crystal meth in Western Australia. And it was just great when faced with such a complex problem to have a kind of a way of problem solving and a way of introducing creativity to the problem. And it was a very enjoyable experience. So when I moved back from Australia, I saw the innovation, the design thinking and innovation course advertised. I was like, wow, I really was interested to learn more about it.
Yeah, and I'm delighted in a way you addressed that, because one of the questions I was going to ask Aoife was that connection. Why would someone in social care come back and do design thinking? Just from your experience, and this, I'm really interested in the answer. It's probably not something we thought we'd ask on this session, but what sort of impact do you think that human-centered design thinking can have in the likes of social care?
I think it's really vital. Human-centered design, I think it applies on so many levels, because social care is all about the relationship you have with people, and it's all about empathizing with people. It's all about using your relationship with people in your work, whether that be with your colleagues or that be with the people and communities that you're supporting. So it's just such a good fit. And often when we work in social care, we work with some of the most vulnerable people and vulnerable communities. And it can be difficult, sometimes you get stuck. And applying design thinking or human-centered design is a way to kind of move through that stuckness and address them really complex problems like homelessness, like drug and alcohol use, in a very kind of researched way, a very progressive way that keeps moving. And as well, we've very limited resources as well. I work in the not-for-profit sector. I work with Coolmine, team leader in drug and alcohol services with Coolmine. So we're not flushed with resources and cash and everything else. So it's a very applies on that level in terms of being very strategic about how you use resources in a very creative way and how to maximize your resources. So it just applies on so many levels. And it was interesting for me to see, and actually one of the concerns I had when I first saw the course advertised, and that it fell under the School of Business and also the School of Education, but I was thinking, God, will this fit with the area that I work in? And it was such a learning experience to see the commonality and the connections that are there between kind of working in human services and working in the corporate world or more industry-based workplaces as well.
And I love that idea, in terms of design thinking, understanding in environments, that it isn't just about maybe the person you're delivering the service to, but you also have to look after your own employees. You have to design for your own employees as much as maybe the person you're providing the service at, and also then trying to understand a holistic view of the person. It isn't just the person maybe in terms of alcohol use, but it's all those other things, housing, etc. And I think that's beautiful. Aoife, I remember you talking about, and it's related to the same point, the role of concerned others, concerned people in, let's say, looking after people with addictions. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, so that's an area that I'm really passionate about, is supporting the family members or loved ones of people that are impacted by drug and alcohol use. So traditionally, services would have very much just focused on the individual who was using drugs and alcohol. And there's been a big shift from that, but traditionally family members were often purposely isolated, and that was when there was more biomedical models of care were in place, where they were seen as their impact could be harmful. But there's been a big shift, and it's towards how can we support the family members and the people around the person who's using, and the communities, because by supporting them, not only does their well-being improve, but also the person themselves, their alcohol and drug use will improve. So it's a real systemic approach to looking at alcohol and drug use. So that's what I did my project on. So I was very lucky to have brilliant support from my organisation, Coolmine. And I worked on developing an integrated care pathway for concerned persons. So that was an integrated care pathway for people that are impacted by their loved ones' alcohol or drug use. And in particularly, we focused on developing that pathway with referrals that come from the acute hospitals. So a lot of our alcohol-based referrals would come from the acute hospitals. We found that by supporting their family members as well as supporting them, the outcomes were much better. So the project that I worked on was all around developing an integrated care pathway to provide the best possible supports for concerned persons with the resources that we already had in existence.
Yeah, very well described and explained. And I remember also hearing you say, Aoife, at some stage, that obviously the person with the addiction that needs to recover, but you also spoke about the need for concerned persons that are related to that person with the addiction also need to recover. And it really grabbed my attention. What do we mean by that?
Yeah, so family members, the research would tell us that family members, and it doesn't just have to be a family member, it can be a partner, a friend. Some of the concerned people we work with are neighbours, and sometimes it could be a postman that drops in every day on the person. So it's really varied when we say concerned people. But what their impact of alcohol use on them can be as traumatic as what it is on the individual that's using as well. And by recover, what we mean, and recovery looks different for everyone. And in Coolmine, while abstinence is the ultimate goal, we're very much focused on quality of life. So we work with where people are at and around what their goals are. So recovery means having the potential to live the life that people want to live and to have the connections that they want to have. So we take a very kind of holistic view of what recovery means, and it's different for everyone. But family members in particular, and concerned people who are impacted by a loved one's alcohol use, it's very common for them to become very isolated. A lot of family members experience a lot of shame. And that's a big barrier for them accessing support. So the idea around the integrated care pathway was to really give them every opportunity, so that at every point where they had an interaction with a service, that there was an opportunity for them to get support as well, whether that be, and we went right back to the triage nurses and ED when their loved one might present to ED, that they were getting something at that point, that they were aware that there's supports for me too, and that there was someone there that could hear and see them as well, because they're really struggling in it all.
Yeah, and I really like as well, Aoife, how you went back into literature. You built on a base, I think was a Bones family system theory, and built it back up from there. But I was also intrigued by you would have advocated a bricolage approach to how you were designing. What does that entail? What is it, I suppose?
Yeah, so that's something that I learned through this course. I didn't know what bricolage was at all, and Fiona Chambers mentioned it in one of the tutorial sessions and one of the coaching sessions. And bricolage, what it meant in my project, was about rearranging the resources that were already in existence in a way to support family members. So we didn't have any extra funding, any extra posts, any extra anything to do this project. So it's about, okay, what's already out there and how can we rearrange these around the needs of concerned people? And that's really where a lot of the design thinking tools came in, because we really needed to emphasize and think, okay, what's going on for the concerned person right now? What's happening for them when they have to leave their loved one in ED and don't hear for another 48 hours? And how can we use the resources that are there to relieve some of them pain points for them? and to really create an opportunity for them to get some support. And it really has a great outcome, not just for them, but when their loved one is discharged, they're in a better position as well to support their loved one.
Yeah, and I love that idea. There's no reason we can't start now. Let's look at what assets, resources we have. Let's look at how we can reconfigure them in a way to deliver value. Eva, what value do you think this new integrated care pathway will bring towards Coolmine, towards people with addictions, etc.?
Coolmine is really focused on supporting family members. We're funded to work with concerned persons. So I think it's a benefit to the organisation. So we've done this project in the Southwest, but Coolmine is a national organisation. So it's something we hope can be scaled up to other areas as well. And I think for me, the biggest benefit, and this would have come from what the people that were involved in the research pieces would have said, was that it actually really recognises concerned persons. It gives them a voice. It demonstrates the importance of listening to concerned persons and involving them. And I think the nature of action design research is you're always gathering the research. So everything you put in place, you're getting data back on. So kind of straight away, you're getting feedback from family members saying, I really felt seen and heard then with that intervention. And that's just fantastic, because Coolmine are very big on research and gathering data. So it serves not only as an intervention, but as a research tool as well, and something that can be continually changed and developed. It's constantly going to be changing.
Yeah, and I know, having spoken to others in Coolmine, but also having listened to you, even I know that even that action design research, whether we call it that or something else, is really, really important to know, to your approach to evidence-based, I suppose, continual development. Even I'm sure there's people listening to this, and it sounds like you have a very busy job, which you do. Can you give them any advice if they're worried about maybe starting on this program, or even trying to consider whether they should come onto this program?
Yeah, I would say do it and don't think too much about it. I think that's advice that you gave me, Paddy. Because if I thought about it, I wouldn't have done it. But I really enjoyed it, and I have 2 young kids. So I was so unsure whether I would be able for it. And I didn't want to start a course and not finish it. But I enjoyed it so much, and the teaching staff are so supportive, and the classmates, there's a lot of group work. So I got huge support from my classmates, and continue to, and have built up this network of people that work in all different sectors that I can now get advice and support from, and it's just amazing. The benefits are great, and I truly had so much fun. You know, it was a lot of work, but particularly with the group project, we had such a laugh and we had so much fun, that it was something that, despite all the hard work, I can genuinely say it was a really enjoyable process. But I also have to say I had massive support from Coolmine, and if I didn't, I wouldn't have been able to do it. Huge support even with my project, and that was great. And they're Coolmine are very focused on innovation, and it's a key part of my role at work and my colleagues. And I think that makes a big difference as well.
Yeah, and what I would say, Aoife, and it isn't just a hope, but I think it's probably reality, is that for every, let's say, hour you'd have spent in this program, you've delivered so much value back to Coolmine through your project, etc. And I think that's really important as well for maybe companies that are thinking about sending employees on it, that it's a multiple payback. You know, I'm not sure it's a 10x, but it's definitely a sort of a multiple payback for each hour. Aoife, congratulations, and I need to say this, on an excellent project that received an award during it. Also, I know you've just very recently got your results for the program, and congratulations on that as well. And enjoy, I know you're about to head off on holidays, enjoy the well-deserved break.
Thanks so much, Paddy. And I just feel it's very important to mention as well, when I talked about my project, centre to my project was a design team. and the project wouldn't have happened without them. So there was 6 people on our design team, and it was really a collaborative effort. It wasn't an individual project at all. So I'd feel like a bit of sham if I didn't say that, because there was huge contribution from the design team as well. But that was such an enjoyable process as well, getting to work with them people.
Yeah, that's great. And Aoife, thank you so much for giving your time today for this session.
No problem. It was lovely to catch up, Paddy. Thank you.